The Italian Renaissance by Lane Harwood. Why did the Renaissance start in Italy? The Renaissance began in north and central Italy. Italy's location on the central Mediterranean placed its cities in the middle of the trade routes. Coastal cities like Venice trade within the east, and old Roman roads were developed into trade routes for other Italian cities. Italian cities conducted their own trade, collected their own taxes, and made their own laws. Some wealthy families gained long-term control. City-states were ruled by single families such as Medici's of Florence. Wealth of many city-states encouraged art and learning. Rich families became patrons of art, architecture, and science. Renaissance ideas spread to the rest of Europe and the city-states of Italy. City-states of Renaissance Italy. The city-states in the region that is independently ruled by major cities. Some of the more important city-states include Florence, Milan, Venice, Naples, and Rome. The wealth of Italy city-states played an important role in the Renaissance. This wealth allowed prominent families to support artists, scientists, and philosophers, which led to ideas of the artistic movement. What is humanism? During the Middle Ages, life and culture were primarily focused on Catholic Church and religion. Toward the beginning of the 14th century, people became less interested in thinking about God, the afterlife, and saints were more interested in thinking about themselves and their natural world. As money began to amassed through trade, the power of church declined. City-states governed more by economy than according to the church. The church was replaced by humanism, where human progress, the human nature became the center of all things. It became more important to people to focus on learning, creating, and enjoying life rather than being constantly focused on their afterlife. Wealthy patrons made it possible for writers, thinkers, and artists to travel Italy, rediscover Greek and Roman literature, and to create. The Middle Ages subjects were considered the only thing appropriate for art. And paintings. The hierarchical scale. If a person was important, they would be drawn larger in the painting. If they were someone religious like Jesus or Mary, they would have halos behind their head to indicate their status as well. Renaissance did away with the hieratic scale and halos. Their paintings of the Bible were much more natural and showed people like Mary and Jesus as regular people, showing the influence of humanism. Renaissance painters also painted secular subjects like Greek and Roman legends, as well as just common people. Martin Luther and the Reformation of the Catholic Church. More people were able to read and were becoming educated. Johann Gutenberg invented the print press in the 15th century, which allowed more people to read the Bible. Martin Luther was a Catholic monk that began questioning what the Catholic Church was doing. The Church was telling people that one could give an offering called the indulgence in order to receive forgiveness from their sins. Martin Luther disagreed with what the Catholic Church was doing and posted his 95 points thesis to the door of the church in 1517. He was excommunicated and went into hiding. He translated the Bible from Greek to Latin to Hebrew into German so more people could read it. He also wrote books about the basics of Christian faith, and other churches sprang up, like Lutheran, Reformed, and the Church of England. Let's record. Martin Luther's 95 Points Thesis. Florence, the birthplace of the Renaissance. Florence was one of the great industrial cities of Europe. The Arno River flowed through it, providing power and water for industry. The access to the sea from imports and exports. There was thriving local wool industries that became even better when the wool merchants began importing better wool from England, producing even better cloth. Banking also started in Florence when bills of exchange began being used instead of transporting cash. The Medici family, who started the wool industry, eventually started Medici Bank. They gained political power of Florence and held it for almost 300 years. Merchants and bankers became very rich, and there were many patrons of arts. Many artists came and produced masterpieces, including Michelangelo, Botticelli, Ghirlandaio, and the Leonardo da Vinci. Great works found in Florence. What was the climate like in Florence? The summer in Florence is hot and humid, and the winter is cold and wet. The average summer temperature is between 80 and 90 degrees Fahrenheit, and the average winter temperature is 41 degrees Fahrenheit. Florence is found in the valley surrounded by hills, which makes its weather different from the rest of Tuscany. What is the physical region like in Florence? The Arno River runs through Florence, which allowed for some control traveling north to south. Two streams also run through Florence, meeting up with the Arno River, the Mugnon and Africo. Water supply is important in providing water for the wool industry. Power and water for the wool industry. It also served as an access point to the sea from imports and exports. Even though Florence is surrounded by hills, walls erected between 1285 and 1340 for military protection. Natural resources. Not that far from Florence is Carrara, which is famous for its marble quarries. Carrara is also considered one of the best marble types in the world, for many sculptors during the Renaissance used its marble. Many sculptors during the Renaissance used it for its marble. Michelangelo came and hand-selected blocks of marble he used to create sculptures of David, Pieta, and Moses. The Arno River was also considered a great resource for Florence because of its importance in the wool production. The access to the sea for trade and that it provided wool was valuable resource that started and grew the cloth industry in Florence. When a loom was discovered in Volterra, citizens asked for financial backing from the Medicis. This gave the Medicis control over the loom mine, and even the Pope started to take a percentage of the loom profits. Loom was essential in dyeing of cloth and was very valuable. Here are some pictures of the marble, the Arno River, the local sheep, and a loom from the mines. Medici banking and the Florin. Banking was also a type of resource in the Florence, and Medicis controlled it. The church had never allowed money to be borrowed with addition of interest. Medici Bank could lend or accept bills of exchange in one currency and collect it in its debit in another. They could hide the interest and exchange rate. Florin was a gold coin created in Florence and became the main coin for the trade in Western Europe. Technology used for travel. Arno River and its stream provided a means of transportation through the city of Florence. It also allowed for access to the sea for shipping. The ancient Roman roads connected the city's states and were used for land travel. Noblemen and merchants would travel by carriage. Horses were very expensive, so an average person who rode an animal for travel, it would be an ox or donkey. Many people would simply walk between towns. People stayed close to home and often lived their whole lives not too far from where they were born. Other contributions of the Italian Renaissance. Leonardo da Vinci was an amazing artist, but also created detailed scientific studies of objects ranging from flying machines to submarines. He also created studies of human anatomy and Galileo built a powerful telescope and used it to show the Earth and other planets revolved around the sun and not. As religions, authorities argued, and the other way around. Filippo Brunelleschi applied the element of classic Roman art to the eight-sided dome he built in Santa Maria della Florence Cathedral in Florence. It was 140 feet across, weighed 37,000 tons, and had no buttresses to hold it up. Brunelleschi devised a way to draw the paint using linear perspective. However, perhaps the most important technology development of the Renaissance happened not in Italy but in Germany, where Johannes Gutenberg invented the mechanical movable type printing press in the middle of the 15th century, which from the first time it was possible to make books and knowledge widely available. Here are some pictures about the different things I just talked about in the last slide. Thank you. The end.